And we are back from the dead, or at least I'm back from the dead. I am a Brad Chester with
Ryan Horton.
and
Matt O'Hara.
Matt. You did pause way too long on that one. You're like, hold on, I am 100% not sure who I am right now.
Hesitated.
Matt, how many drinks have we had before hopping on the cast?
Oh, listen, not enough or too many.
That is the correct answer. Oh, there we go. Hold on, everyone. I'm just moving this cow over. Nothing to see here. Because it's not a real Thursday or even a Monday, to be honest, without cow. And that's the key. That's the quality that we bring night after night.
We may not bring much, but we bring cow quality.
It's all of the good times, my friends. I have to take like some sort of vitamin C, B, Q, L, superhuman strength. I need the super mutant vaccine. I need something so that when I get back from large tournaments that my body just doesn't die. Is we save them this time? I don't know what you're talking about, Lyle.
All of the Vita Rays.
I mean, I did pretty good up until the last couple minutes.
Hold on. I love everything about this. We're really milking this joke now. Love everything about this.
Yes, we are.
That makes me so happy.
I just like in our DOG chat, somebody's like, what did I open my phone to?
Listen, if they didn't mute the chat, or if they didn't mute that chat, they deserve whatever happens.
Exactly. So I have to give quick props to another Matt that was there at LVO. Holy crap. Apparently, Mr. Aaron took offense to not winning all the paint stuff at Du Bois and put his display board in overdrive.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see pictures of it, O'Hara? Did you see this?
Yeah, like the steam subterranean basement or something. That's wild.
Crazy lights, nurglings, and pipes. It was beyond insane. I mean, like, the thing that, I didn't judge Du Bois paint this year. I will be next year. Ken Mitch judged painting, and he was like, man, I just didn't like the rock facing on his display board. And then he criticized a few other things on display board, and it was really where he lost his points this year. And he was like, no, that ain't happening again. And went,
never again.
I'm going to 11. And it was insane.
It was, I would say it was, I go, hey man, I think you already won this and now you're just being a dick. So let's
just flex, you know?
Well, yeah. It's like, and he didn't win for LVO itself. He didn't win top 3 at LVO, which I thought was a little bit of a shame. Now, granted, the other armies were absolutely gorgeous. They all deserved some kind of prize, but I was just like, man, I was like, 2 of those armies that beat him, I was like, nah, I don't know about that.
It's so subjective on that. It's very difficult to. And the funny thing, I'm putting the cow as my background as we speak, but the cow picture is gigantic. So I have to, you know what? I might make it just the creepiest thing ever and just make it so it's just peeking around me. There we go. There we go.
That's okay. I'm having fun with the fact that, with playing Carnifexes all weekend, I decided to throw a random Carnifex pickup. My Fex is up, and of course they're, beating up Fulgrim.
Why not?
Oh, man, I wanted to see the Carnifex versus Wraithlord game. And I saw you paired to that. It was like 9 Carnifexes versus like 8 Wraithlord equivalents. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, it was 3 Wraithlords, a couple Wraith Seers, and a whole bunch of D cannons, and I was just like, oh, all right, what table are we on? Oh, the industrial table with no terrain. This is not fun for me.
I love this. Brad, you now look utterly ridiculous. Also, Lyle, that Nick Cage cow pick is terrifying. So, I lost my train of thought with just seeing that. I'll put that up later in the show. Also, what did I do, Frontline Gaming, to incur your wrath in the pairing process? Why?
Normally, Brad, you in the first round, you might get a really tough player, And then if you do, it kind of makes up for it in the second round or the third round. But you just got punched and punched and punched. And you kept punching all the way to 7-0 before you went down. But I was
8
just
games,
like,
man. What was that all about? I was like, I don't recall doing anything terrible. I mean, I could have, but who knows? I don't. Who knows? Who am I to stop Blackout Brad from doing what Blackout Brad does?
Yeah, but here's the funny part. You weren't Blackout Brad this last weekend. You
No.
were very sober, classy Brad.
Sober, classy Brad. I kept it classy the entire time.
It's all sharp in the blazer and everything. It was pretty incredible.
I'm making it Las Vegas classy. Stay classy, Vegas. I had a good, God.
Of course, then we were walking with your wife out of the room and went through I'm going to quote your wife, the prison of the Rio.
Yes.
Because she did not like the Rio
She
at all.
hated the Rio with a passion of 1,000 suns. Dude, the best, besides okay, so Brian was here for this. So Britt went on a rant starting at the end of the hall and continued it all the way to the cab stand about how much she hated being a prisoner of 40K in the Rio because you couldn't go anywhere. And we were like, we get it, sweetie. We got it. The end of the event, she's staring off into the skyline. We're sitting outside, just outside the gaming hall, and we're sitting there. And Britt goes, "Oh man, look at the Vegas skyline there. Isn't that beautiful? Full of life." And then we come here where people come to die and decay. And I'm like, are you giving like the bad guy speech? Like, what's happening? Are you going to nerve gas this place? Like, I feel like this is literally an action movie and you're giving the bad guy monologue. So I was a little worried.
But at the same time, I actually didn't think the Rio was that bad now that as compared to last year, where I think Britt would have completely lost her mind if she was there the year before.
We gave him
where there was most everything was opened up. The casino was running pretty nice. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Tad expensive. Tad expensive.
Well, the problem is that we got trapped and the hotel kind of knows that there's nothing open. So they just charge whatever the fuck they wanted to, basically, for any food and stuff like that. And then we went off and went back to the strip and you're like, oh yeah, I can eat for inflated Vegas prices, but not inflated. We have you at gunpoint. You'll eat what we tell you to eat.
Like when we went to lunch at Wallaburgers, which was absolutely fantastic. I mean, for the three of us for lunch, including fries and drinks and everything, it was like $60.
Yeah. I mean, like we went to the place,
a reasonable lunch, when you're out somewhere.
I wish they would get it back to and I know that the Rio's got to be like crazily cheap, but obviously I had my wife telling me the entire time, but it does make it unbelievably different because if you're on the strip, you can go out, you can sneak over to the Rite Aid, the CVS, whatever the hell was there. You have options of places you can go, especially late. That was the biggest thing that we really found out. Because when we had it at the Bally's, you could sneak over to that restaurant that was in Paris. There was a couple other things that was open super late. And you're like, hey, cool, we're done. Even if I played the Shadowrun, we could have still went somewhere. You know what I mean? If it's within walking distance. But then you have to go, all right, we got to get a cab. We got to go over there. You know what I mean? And everything just went to shit, basically. So, I would love them to get back over there. I'm assuming that the cost difference is
it's got to be nice. I mean, considering how much they've grown. And I know you probably didn't walk around every room, but I walked around the entire convention. And I mean, you go back into the catacombs of the Rio, there's another, miles worth of rooms in the back where they had narrative and Song of Fire and Ice, War Machine, you name the game system, and it was pretty much, if it was a miniature game that's popular, it was there.
I have to give props out to that because everybody that I talked to that was involved in the narrative said they had a great time.
So did you hear what the gentleman did for the narrative? I don't know if anyone outside...
I didn't get the whole the thing about it, but I had a couple of people that I knew that played in the narrative, and I just had kind of quick conversations about it, but everybody really, really enjoyed playing the narrative.
the narrative, he got like people into pods of 10. So if you're with a faction, he put you in a pod with 10 people in your faction, decided what other faction you guys would be playing against, threw you into a Discord server together to set up your narrative and to set up your games. And then you roughly played a few games, and you could choose to play like 1-on-1, 2v2, 4-player mash. It was quite quite an interesting thing. Like, I went over and I checked it out for a little while, and those guys were laughing, drinking, and having fun. And I'm like, why are we not over here?
I don't know. Matt, have you played in a narrative?
Not in a long time. Quite a bit back in like 5th and 6th. Weirdly enough, I think 8th and 9th edition do not narrative badly, but kind of casual badly, because things kind of get lopsided quickly as opposed to previous editions. That's been my experience with casual, but when they're done right, they're incredible. When you get them on like those big, long, like 20-foot tables or whatever, and you get like 1 million people involved, it's always a great time. You know, you get everybody in the right spirit of things, and it's awesome.
I just love
definitely
it.
A nice change of pace.
Yeah, I just love shit like that. I'm very competitive on that, so they usually run at the same time. So I end up playing in them in the whatever the champs is for that particular tournament. But like, I used to run a lot of stuff. We used to do a lot of weekend things at the Toledo game room, and just putting on big points games with different parameters for victory and stuff like that, and things that carried over, because you get a lot of guys that were like role players and stuff that also play 40K. You know what I mean? So I love that. I like having Sergeant Ted survive and get something for doing it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's funny you mentioned like D&D. It's almost like when they have like a dungeon master for the game, almost, when you have a guy not playing but he's like writing up a scenario, and you can have like hidden, like, oh, in turn 3 the players don't know it, but like 30 bloodletters are going to pour out of the shrine and just cause havoc. That's always, when it gets kind of like spiced up like that, that's always when I think it's just awesome. When all the spirit kind of goes back into it, you know what I mean?
TJ does his own thing. But but I love that kind of stuff. I really do. But I do think that you have to have somebody that's actively kind of running it as a dungeon master, basically. You know what I mean? To make it work. But you need to spend.
One of the things we used to do at Adepticon, the 13th Legion, and this was a lot of the guys out of the Buffalo group ran this. Steve Schlegel being one of the main cars of it, is we used to run that giant apocalypse game the first day of champs in the very back of the apocalypse, and you would just see crazy stuff show up, and it was just a ton of fun. That's where I first met Duncan. He spent like 2.5, 3 hours talking to us about why we were putting on just crazy fun big game, and he loved every second of it.
I love it. As per Andy, everyone, please like and subscribe. Check out the Patreon, because those of us that want to keep the lights on and keep doing content, please, please, please help the DOG out, the fluffy DOG especially. There was a guy there was 5-1 with a Tesseract Vault. There was some different shit there, man, at LVO.
Yeah.
When you get roughly 1,000 players, it was less than that, but 1,000 players, we'll say for sakes of convenience, and you are going to see some stuff that you just don't expect to see, and some of it's going to catch people off guard, which
Didn't Tom get the 30 Wolfen inside the Space Marine super heavy transport?
The Mastodon, bro. The Mastodon.
Like, oh,
God, he was, by the way, it was so funny talking between rounds. So I'm like, man, my first game is against WTC guy from the Netherlands. Then I got Quentin, and then I got Innes, and then we start the next day. And Tom's like, yeah, man, I played this guy. You know, it was his first tournament. And his next is over the Mastodon. And I did this. I was like, what is even happening? Are you trolling me? Did you pay money to someone so we can have these conversations?
But it's like, I drew Tau in the first round, and Tom just looks at the list, looks at my army, and goes, well, have a good game, Brian. And I'm like, you never know, I could get really lucky. And I did. And I pulled the game out. And then he was like, well, you can keep it up. And I'm like, no. And then I ran into that Eldar list and went, that's a lot of big guns on no terrain. And then in the third round, I ran into, Salamander guy running 3 units of Assault Centurions and 3 full units of Eradicators. And I was like, Carnifexes die to those real easy. It was good fun, though. It was a good time.
Mastodon.
I did want to ask you guys, was the terrain any better, or did they still kind of the Necron table problem?
Well,
'Cause I saw they had some new sets out.
we got Mike in chat here too, but the thing is that some of the tables were really really good. The problem is we had so many people, and they had legitimately, I think, 1% attrition. So they were like literally making tables happen out of their assholes, basically. You know what I mean? Just making shit happen. But he knows that. We talked to, and I'm going to name drop. I'm going to give our conversation. Mike and I were talking about it, and he knows the tables that are shit. You know what I mean? And they were making so much new shit that they didn't really have time to weed out the bad tables. But after looking at them, you know what I mean? You go, recognize the problem. And I really respected that when he told me that, because he's like, I know that certain tables have to go, or at least elements inside those tables.
Who works for FLG and is now kind of in charge of their terrain. He's the new guy doing that. And you know, Mike, you met him at ACO. We may or may not have had many cocktails together. The nice thing that he said was like, he goes, look, all the Necron tables, of which there was probably a dozen of those left. He was like, all those are gone. Then the industrial tables are going. And he was like, they're replacing them with their Sisters of Battle terrain.
Great.
Those tables are absolutely, those were on stream. I know Brad played on one of them. And those are really nice tables. They're pretty efficient. And, you know, the complaint that you heard the most from players was that they wished that there was placed terrain for the mission. Like, this table gets this map on this mission, this table gets this map, so on and so forth. It'd make their player packet a little bigger, but it'd be pretty simple and easy, and it would take that skill gap level that I saw.
It's not even just skill gap, man. It's such a huge deal to whoever puts that first piece of terrain down. You know what I mean? Go first, go second, whatever. It's sometimes it's big, sometimes it's not, but it's always crazy important to get that first piece of terrain down. It completely changes the game over. I played Oliver Smith in the shadow round, and one of the reasons I was able to get that game out is I dropped first piece of terrain, so I put a crate in the middle of the board. You know what I mean? So I opened up the middle. If he got first drop, he drops one of the VLs there. You know what I mean? And I think that that's too big of a deal. I do like Snakes' where we did in Toledo, where we just put a 14x8 piece in the middle. It's diagonal, and it's effectively a glass house, and you couldn't take the objective from either side. So if you wanted to take the objective, you had to stand it in, basically be seen. But it still gave blocking. You know what I mean? It's just, it shouldn't be such a big deal that you can literally win or lose a game on one die roll, which is the terrain roll.
That's my only complaint about the player place terrain. I mean, it is better than having completely sparse tables that are not set up well. Will say that wholeheartedly. But the thing you have to realize is when you get the skill gap, because you saw it throughout a lot of the stream games where the more skilled player on player place terrain was doing things like placing that crate in the middle, or if they were playing a close combat army, putting that L in the middle to where they gained advantage. It was pretty big in most of those games.
Wait, it's such a big deal on it, though. That's another reason why I agree with you, as I've played more and more with player placed, that I'd always rather have set terrain that moves per the mission. And the thing is like, I came back and did my coaching, and a lot of people went to LVO, and the biggest thing that I saw when I started looking at stuff is, well, you could have put your terrain here, here, and here, you know what I mean? And that's the thing is a lot of people just have never even used player place terrain until then. So it's a big thing. Mike, I would love that. Mike goes, definitely an interesting take to have some pieces static on certain missions. I would love that. The thing is if you put, I'll send you a picture over it, Mike, because having one in the middle, that's basically a glass house, but obscuring. So you always can get seen from the middle, but you can use that terrain to block yourself. And it does help. It basically sets it off. Because one of the biggest problems, besides that initial, inexperience, is when those boards that had a mid piece, again, whoever won that roll got to move that piece and then put something down. So man, like shifting that down into your opponent's face with some of those big terrain boards was a big deal, man.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, I
for you
played on the
guys.
orc
Sorry.
board where that got shifted over pretty much just right into me, and I didn't have any good choices at that point for terrain.
What would you guys prefer? Just because I know basically some armies prefer the middle kind of wide open. Some obviously like the big piece of obscuring terrain in the middle. How do you? Seems like for Blood Angels or I guess Dark Eldar back in the day, they would want the big obscuring piece in the middle so they could kind of post up and then launch attacks into your opponent's deployment zone. Versus guard or Tau or whoever would want the big thing in the middle. How do you?
Well, that's why I like
Which one's better? I guess.
That's why I like the clear piece. If you do like a piece that you can't take the middle from, so basically you have a piece big enough and open enough so that it's obscuring, so you can be behind it. But if you want to touch that terrain piece or the objective, you have to be in it so you're seen. So it helps a lot. Real quick, the army is the least amount of broken stuff I've had in borrowing anything. I do have to say thank you to Lyle and Heidi. I took that army to LVO and everything went magical. So there's so very few things that got beat up on. I have to say on the way there, it was hilarious because I'm checking a bag for Britt, my wife, and the lady literally looked. Lyle brought it one time on the plane and we were in first class and he's like, oh yeah, they put it in. I'm like, no one cares what first class people do. You could put he could be like, I put a dead body in the overhead. Is that cool? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. But I went to go just say I was going to take this on board, and the lady at bag drop off just looked at me and goes, just check that. There's zero chance we're letting you put that on the plane. Like, well, I'm going to need some fragile stickers immediately. And I had already wrapped the thing. Tom actually said, he goes, I've never seen you take care of an army this much in my whole life. What is even happening right now?
Very true. Well, watching you pack it up, put the bubble wrap in between everything and set it down, I was like, wow, Brad cares.
I was trying. I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying. I had a really good time playing that Tau army. I know everything's changed now, but it was nice to play something semi-new. I mean, I know Tau fairly well, but I didn't play with it that much.
I want to answer your question on what do I prefer? I prefer the terrain to be preset for the mission. Like last month, we tried out you were at the event that I ran the RTT there at the beginning of January, where I used all three of the GW layouts, but I put them with the missions they worked with. And that seemed to go really well. And I got to give shout out to Mike Brandt's team for being nice enough to me from going, hey, I'm running stuff and I want to use your terrain. What mission goes best with what, everything. And they were really nice to, to say, hey, this is what works with this. This is what works with this. This is what works with this. And it was really helpful. I give them a lot of credit for getting back to me on that. But I like set terrain. I actually want to try Sniggs's player placed with the big box piece in the middle, which we'll be trying on Saturday. So it should be pretty good. And it's was it 14 by 8, right? Was what we were doing, Brad?
Yep. Hold on,
Nope.
I'm making a pull.
But yeah, it's one of those things where you have to play around. I don't think there's a perfect solution right now in 40K for competitive. The GW terrain does favor certain armies. I think if you tinker with some of those, because the terrain pieces are great. The sizes of them cover a lot of the board. The forests in, setup 1 are kind of inconsequential.
Yeah.
So I think those need to get moved around a little bit.
They're actually not even inconsequential. They're just annoying. Because they're basically where because you're trying to let's be honest, you're trying to roll your dice there basically, and it's just in the way. It doesn't have anything to do with the game. Half the time I move them so I can just roll. I do want to go to Mike's comment real quick because I want to answer that before I forget it. He goes, what if the center ruin can only be moved along the center line between player territories? It prevents players from pushing an opponent's face? Yes, but it depends on what terrain set we're playing on, because just moving it down, like if Matt and I are playing right now and we're playing like scouring or something where the objectives are very close, or relics, if I just move it down, I can mess up where he can put the rest of his stuff just because of the fact that it's big. Those buildings are so big. So it depends on the terrain set, to be honest. I would rather have a piece that's just open, to be fair. If you just said, what up, D? What up, everyone? But if you guys just made it so that you considered that middle building to just be basically put windows all over the place on it. And you could just leave it on the objective, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? And kind of do what we're saying. It makes it a significant amount easier, and no person feels super bummed about where the terrain got moved. You know what I mean? What you want, I just don't want the die roll for terrain placement to be such a big deal. You know what I mean? You shouldn't just have a huge advantage because you won one die roll. You want more things to go and play there. So that's just kind of what I'm looking for. Is you guys are looking for, fairness and everything else with your boards, and you can still have that diversity. I like to play on different boards. Even when I'm playing in very competitive events, I still like to have different boards, but those different boards have to feel fair.
The building that's the problematic one on the FLG ones, in my opinion, is the orc building. Just cut that bad boy in half.
Yeah, 1,000%, to be honest.
Cut it in half. I know it's not designed that way, and they have some beautiful pre-painted sets. They are absolutely gorgeous. That one, if you just redo the cut and cut that board in half, cut that building in half, or make the center of it gorged out, where it's a ruin on two sides and a big open down the middle, it would be better.
The thing is that I want to simplify it. I mean, I would actually prefer, to be perfectly honest, to be fair, because you asked forever ago, but I never shut the hell up, Matt. So the answer to your question for me is I prefer, number one, set terrain that moves per the mission. Number two is player place terrain, but you have some sort of set middle objective that makes it, or middle piece that makes it fair, but not a giant piece that you can move away from that still interacts with the game too hard. And then you've got the GW set, and I think my actual least favorite is just free for all player place, because it feels like there's too many experienced players that play against. You could be like equal player skill, but if one person's playing all the time in player place and the other's just not, they only go to GW events or set tournament events, they're going to have such a huge advantage over the other person. Oh, that's a good question. Lyle had a good one on that. I did like that, Anna, that we were talking about that. The Snakes piece at Glass City, 100%. I actually like that a lot. Mm-hmm. Lyle goes, Brad, you want the set terrain more like WTC or the Maryland terrain from this summer? Probably in the middle, to be honest. I don't know how many people are familiar with that. I think the Maryland does a decent job of that, but some of he wants to make sure that there's at least one terrain or objective that's just in the open period to make people fight over it. And WTC has been using, they have 8 boards that now they're changing a bit, but they rotate, and most people are playing, I think, a lot on table 6, if you know WTC at all. And it gives you a little bit more. I like Glass City just a lot. So I don't... Go ahead.
No, I mean, I like the GW setup. If you use 2 and 3 and you allow people to rotate the big building in their deployment zone to fit the deployment. It was something that Ogden and Death or Glory did at Motor City Mayhem when they were all using only the second set of player placed or of GW terrain, and that seemed to make it a little more fair and balanced. I did the same thing at Salt City GT, and it worked really, really well. I think that comes down to the terrain. Like Salt City GT that I run, it's all the same tables. They're all the same terrain. There's different colors and different looks, but it's all the same because it's to create the most fair competitive balance where the terrain is there and it's serving its purpose, but it comes down to player skill. But on a personal level, I do like moving the terrain to the mission. I thought that was really the couple times I've done it, the couple times I've watched it done at the store. I've seen it done at a couple events. It does work very well. It's time consuming on the TO. You can't do it, easily without having maps at a 1,000-person GT, but you can definitely do it fairly easily if you give map layouts and measurements and go, before your game, there's 15 minutes of pre-round time to set up your table, set the objectives, and be ready. And then the round officially starts timed at this time.
For a 2-day event, you could do like the actual GW opens. I think they do this. Where you have like terrain layout 1, which I think they're getting rid of. But like, okay, day 1 is going to be all our terrain layout 1 missions, and then like you come back for day 2, and it's like, oh, now it's terrain layout 2, and now we're going to do all the terrain layout 2 missions. So you don't have to juggle it between missions, but you kind of juggle it between days. Obviously, that doesn't help it like an RTT or 1-day event, but I think that might have made it a little easier on them.
They did that at the GW. They did terrain style 1, and then they switched it to style 2 for the second day. You could do that for anything on that. But the thing is I did 2 years ago now. Gary Frank did that at the Air Force Armed Forces tournament. Invitational. I don't remember what it was called on that. But he did a layout specifically, just printed it out. Here's where all the terrain is, and he moved it per. It's not that hard. You just, you measure out the, from the back end of a piece of terrain, just slap it there, go on to the next one.
And I think all the players, 99% of the players will have zero issue with going, yep, we adjust the terrain, boom, we're done. And as we all know, terrain, especially the bigger the event, the tighter the space gets. The terrain gets shifted, it gets moved, it gets bumped. It's never 100% accurate if you do. And like, I run Du Bois, and we do pre-placed terrain. Every table, not every table, but 90% of the tables are different. We pre-place everything, but things get shifted, things get moved around. Somebody bumps something, somebody's moving their display board, things get shifted. And we always kind of leave it up to the players to go, if something doesn't look right, either call a judge or fix it. It's a pretty straightforward thing, and most people are pretty cool.
There's a couple good ones in chat here. There is a lot of people that want this to be an esport, but we can't agree on terrain. Yeah, that's the thing is it's still a hobby on that. Speaking of hobby, what do you got brewing up there, Matt? You got any sweet stuff? You got a Mojo army coming at?
I swear to God, I'm not chasing the meta, but I'm actually working on a guard army right now.
Lies!
It will be, by the time it's ready to go, guard will be nerfed into the ground by the time it's ready to go, so I'm not too worried about that.
But you're rolling that out on Saturday, right?
Oh yeah, I'm eating the hobby score, but I want to get some reps in and see how it goes. I played Sisters for like 2-3 years now, and speaking of GW, especially because I was all on GW train, that's my beef with GW train, is like, okay, it's another Sisters game on GW train, so I'm going to deploy like this, I'm going to do that. It's like, okay, I just need something fresh. It's like, oh, guard are coming out, I'll get a guard army prepped, and then lo and behold, guard are the new hotness. So
it's funny to listen to the differences in guard players, because I was sitting at LVO talking with a couple guys, and 2 of them happened to be guard players. One was like, oh, this book's hot trash, and he was carrying on for about 5 minutes of what he didn't like about the book. And the other guy was like, dude, everything you're saying is the exact opposite of what you're saying, and it's really good, and it's because of X, Y, and Z. And just the differences in opinion between 2 players, and both were, fairly decent competitive players. I've played against both of them. And just to listen to the different reactions, it just tells you how deep and diverse that book probably is going to end up being.
Yeah, I want Kasserkin to get nerfed sooner or later, so I don't feel obligated to run 30 of them, because I just don't want to. But like, you see them on the table, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, now I understand. Because I see them take 18.
As I've told everyone, the only FAQ I personally have at my events for that is Kasserkins are capped at 6 mortal wounds for the units shooting, not for each unit they shoot at.
How dare you?
I know, I'm a terrible, sane, rational human being.
Oh man! And then they just changed the things that ignore damage negation. Like, feel no pain now ignores damage reduction. Seems like a very strange ruling, I'll say, but I'd like to pour one out for our local Death Guard players, because it's going to be a rough time for them for a while.
What's up with there's always that one army that gets like collateral damage nerfed?
Yeah. It's like, you lose AOC and you don't get any points buffs. Take that, Death Guard. You meta crushing monster. I'm like, oh Jesus.
You're like, why? We still limp along at 5 inches. Shut your face. I do want to point out my new poll.
I gotta give Matt Aaron a ton of credit because he did all of that hobby stuff and went to all those GW events, Adepticon, LVO, all the FLG stuff he attended with Death Guard. That was one solid year of him playing Death Guard, and they got nerfed every time, whether it was intentional or not intentional, and he just kept plugging along.
So you ever wonder who's bullying who in the GW balance studio? Like some guy, like I remember in eighth edition they would nerf Ogren, like regular Ogrins got nerfed every time they put a balance pack out, and it's like, who in the GW like design team is just getting annihilated by like Ripper guns that they deserve this punishment over and over and over again.
Matt, my literal favorite, I couldn't stop laughing when I'm laughing Brian about this. When we got all the Tyranid nerfs, you knew somebody has to be the scapegoat, the sacrificial lamb. But then you're looking through all the point updates, and they just put a point nerf on the Trigon. And you're like, fucking why, man? No one's bringing the goddamn Trigon.
I won one event where I was running 2 Trigons, and I was 3-0 at BFS before I got, deathly ill from eating and, had the drop. And
it was you. It was you.
Was it me just running some dudes who didn't really do much?
It's just so funny. I was like, you brought it as a meme to play shit. I'm like, who's playing this thing that it needed a nerf? Again, my scenario was the Trigons just watching TV on the battle barge. He just goes, what? Fuck you. Bam! Why?
my guess is one person deep struck in a Trigon that was like, OBSEC 5 onto an objective when his opponent went, what? And that guy was on the balance team and went, I don't like those. They should be 15 points more. And everybody else went, all right.
Did they just have like a new 3 strikes rule where it's like you get 1 nerf if you're still a problem. If you get 2 nerfs, you're still a problem. It's like, third time we're just coming for everything. Like,
yeah, it was just funny because I'm just like, I don't know anybody outside of Brian that ran that model since 8th edition came out. Like, what? Like, hey man, I haven't exactly been a huge factor here. Did I really need to get nerfed? So
everyone was kind of laughing at me because people were coming up to me the entire LVO going, dude, I love your list. It's just so fun. And I'm like, yeah, it's just oops, all Carnifexes. And I mean, like our stream voted on it for me to, to bring a Monster Mash list. And I decided to take it a little step further. And
you did go buck wild on
to watch a GW person come up and like Zach from GW events was like came up to my table and is looking and he goes, man, that's a lot of Carnifexes. Where's the rest of your army? And I'm like, this is the army. So and he was like, what?
Dude, you guys want to bring up stuff? Can we bring up the fact that Alex Fennel accidentally fucking beat Vic and then dropped from the tournament?
I saw that. Is that like a flex? Like just objective achieved?
Alex had to go back. His wife was out of town and went back there to basically family was watching the baby, said he was going to play, want to hang out and do stuff, but had to go later that night. And the better part is he, plays a great game, beats Vic. Vic's a great player. And Alex he's been around as long as I have, so he's an old man. So he literally plays it on stream, wins the game. The very next game, he knows that he's going to drop because he's got shit to do. He wants to go eat, and he's got to pack and everything else. And shows up, and I can't even remember who he was playing, but he goes, as soon as he wogs, I'm going to concede. And I don't think the other guy thought it was a joke or even heard him at first. So he literally goes, all right, I'm going to wog. And he goes, good game, I concede. And the guy's just confused, like, what just happened? So...
Well, it's like everyone, and the funny story of it is neither of them knew who the other person was.
Yes.
Like zero idea. Both very good players, Fennel has won LVO, and has been known in the community for a number of years, at least 10 years, I would say. And Vic's been around for a little bit and just yep, I don't know who that is.
Loved it. 2 Englishmen that have no idea who the hell they are. Just throwing down. Oh, God, that was fantastic. And then immediately Deuce out. See you later.
I think it was I'm not sure if it was Salty John or one of the other guys, but somebody put up the car screeching the off ramp meme of on the way to win LVO and ITC rank and Fennel. It was great.
I like the flex tape one even better. Winning the ITC season, slap Fennel with the tape.
It's like the robber with the crowbar just taking out his knee and then disappearing back into the shadows.
Yep, he's just like wandering. Why? It's like,
Why?
You happen to be at the Trigon's house. That's why you got punched.
Poor hand.
Who knew?
All right, so
Trigon.
Matt, so with switching over into Arcs of Omen, what are you going to be playing in your guard?
I'm starting off with a probably not meta guard army because it's what I have, and I just feel like I need to get reps in. I'm doing the Death Strike missile, the obligatory two.
Flex.
I think it's.
Flex. That's a big flex.
I had talked myself into working. Maybe it's good against Marines. And that's Marines get sticky objective. I'm like, it is no longer good into Marines. Okay, but I'm going to run it for a while anyways, just for the memes. The obligatory 2 to 3 Lehman Russ Executioners, the Dorn, Stormtroopers. I have a really stupid commissar me and Fox are going to run on Saturday. I'm convinced it could be good, but I might be wrong. It's the commissar with the relic sword, combat warlord trait, and an Ogren bodyguard who can give himself objective secured. And just park on an objective, and if a 5-man Marine squad comes up, murder the shit out of it and hope it goes for the best.
Are you playing Kaifus Kane? I feel like that's what's happening right now.
Oh, man.
Also, if you have not tried to decide my army for the next 2 tournaments, I've put up a poll.
Have you played Votan yet?
No, I'm going to play. It's basically what flavor of Marines am I going to play for the next 2 tournaments, because they're back to back. I'm going to Blake's place in Arkansas, and then I think I'm going to go to Cherokee, and I'm going to play Marines in both of them. It's just I'm making lists, and everything but my Space Wolves looks almost the same. It just depends on what name I change. So what special rules they get, because all of the shooting type Marine lists have like most of the same shit in them. So yeah, with Tom, that's why I made the poll without you, because he immediately pops in with Imperial Fists.
I got scared. I looked at, there was an RTT that happened the week of LVO, so it's just like a bunch of locals, and it's just an RTT, so I don't want to read too much into it, but it was like 22 people, and I looked at first place Iron Hands, second place Iron Hands, third place Iron Hands. I'm like, oh no, not again.
It's the thing is, without that, there's still I don't know if they have the biggest upside, but they definitely have the highest floor, because you can just not worry about auras. You get the extra AP, you get to reroll ones the entire game. I mean, Tom will give me $1,000 if I play Crimson Fist. I will literally play AOS models in 40K if I get $1,000. I will show up with the Barbie Malibu Dream House and do a 40K event for $1,000. That's a thing. Make that happen. What's Brad playing with? That looks like Voltron, Ken, and Bob the Builder.
Imperial Knights Army at that point.
Machines.
So
no, I'm still torn on what I'm going to try and play. I really have a couple Necron army ideas in my head, which I know are not my norm by far, even though I have had Necrons for a long time, that I want to try out. But I also want to expand on the Carnifex list and try to make that a viable list.
I've had Matt Dennis, hopefully he's actually check it out, has been playing with the 6 Screamer Killers, double Mawlock, double Walking Tyrant, and some other random big boys in it, and Behemoth. Yep. And it still plays, man. It's still a shit ton of 2-up armor, and they've got AP a lot. So
yeah, I'm thinking of going to 9 Screamer Killers. Those were by far like one of the most successful things. A lot of people ask me why I went with Yormander and not Behemoth, and I liked the 1 CP strat of put 3 Carnifexes into reserve and deep strike them in. Was astonishingly powerful to people. They did not expect it, and because their deployment is that 6-inch string out, they cover a lot of ground and can make a lot of very interesting aggressive moves.
I love that. 1KA, we should be able to crowdfund that. I'm not going to lie. I would love to send in pictures of my Voltron Optimus Prime, Malibu Barbie army. That's all. It's all converted, man. It counts as is, right?
You got to do the token like blue tacked Imperial Eagle on each one, so it's like, oh, now it's a converted force. You don't have to worry about it. Slap some purity seals on it. We're good to go.
Oh, fuck. I need to make this happen. And of course, Bobby, come on. Malibu House has all of the keywords. First floor, blocking line of sight, obscuring. It's inspiring. Yeah.
Gotta give it all the French ones.
Heavy cover. So, look at PJ shows up. He's been messaging me this whole time. I've told him about this show multiple times, and he just finally goes, "What are you talking about? What is this thing?" I'm like, "We just sit and chat on Thursdays, you know." It might be 40K. It is today because we just got back from LVO, but it might be me talking about random TV or models or who cares. So, and then he shows up, my buddy, my boy, one of my besties, Mr. Pajama Pants. And that.
So this is where we're going to go off tangent for a second. And I'm going to go 2 years ago at Du Bois. Brad and PJ show up, and of course, without a room.
No, wait a second though for that though.
Yeah,
the whole
just saying
time
there was no room involved. We've told the story of, you know,
I know,
Alan
but he's
not.
here. He was so confident to me, just lying to my face, going, "Dude, I got it. We have a room. It's not a big deal." And I'm like getting all anxiety ridden from it. And he's like telling me that we have a room, and then fucking we show up, and he just looks at the front counter and goes, "Hey, do you guys have any rooms available?" Like, you motherfucker.
And of course, we always sell that venue out, so it's hilarious. But so Brad asks, "Can anyone go get me wine?" And Matt, being a local and not being, you know, 4 sheets to the wind at that point, was like, "Yeah, I'll go." So they went and they bought him all the Malbec, and we just sat around and got, you know, a little pie-eyed. But Matt, do you even remember all of that night?
About half. I remember. Well, I just got back at 40K, so I'll admit I didn't really know all the quote unquote 40K names. So I'm like, oh, I'm not scared of Pajama Pants. I can take this guy down. Proceed to talk an inordinate, unbackupable shit, I think, for about half an hour. And yeah, that didn't end up working out because, sure enough, day after, get paired into Pajama Pants, you know, play a close game, lose, and then follow it up immediately. It's like, fine, I'm 1-1. I can still have the tournament I thought to. Immediately get paired into a TJ Lanigan coming off of a close loss, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those GTs, huh? But no, I remember about roughly half that night.
Yeah, he was like, they were just, everyone was, you know, shit faced, and they're just screaming back and forth at each other obscenities of how much trash this is, trash that is trash. And Brad's just sitting there classily drinking his wine out of the bottle, and he goes, "Well, you know, you guys could just play." It was good fun.
Oh man, one day.
It's all the goodness, man.
Yeah.
All of the goodness. What's the best army that you've ever painted up and converted? What's your pride and joy between the two of you?
Oh, I mean, my NIDs are my pride and joy, especially my Screamer Killers with like the converted Moloch mouths that look like they're all screaming. And my wife calls them the Jawlocks.
Jawlocks.
Yeah, because they have giant jaws. You know, it's what it is. But for me, the pride and joy is going probably just before COVID to an RTT that was, you know, 2,000 points with an entire second edition army painted up and flexing. That was good fun.
Nice. What about yourself, Matt?
Probably I like my White Sisters quite a bit. My newest sister generation. I also had an urban camo second edition Cadian army I was really fond of for a long time. But yeah, just like, I love those I'm an old man, so I love all those old metal minis with all the, you know, makes the GW case weigh like 19 pounds to carry around. But
God,
just all the character.
Back in the day when we didn't know that we had it good, and today I would go back and buy so much stuff when we had bits by the gram and all that. So,
well, you remember the battle barge, right?
Oh yeah,
they used to bring the van around.
Oh yeah.
where they would drive up and they'd be like, we're going to be at this place for the weekend and you can buy bits, and they would have, power fists and everything else where you just buy them by the part, and they were like $1, $2. They weren't super expensive. And at the end of the day, it would always be like, all right, for the next half hour, bits by the pound. And it was just like, grab handfuls of stuff and just
55 cents a pound.
That was crazy. It was stupid and expensive. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I get why they don't do it anymore, but I miss bits ordering where it's like, I need one Hellion Skyboard. Fine, I'll go get that. And now it's all plastic and all warehousing, so you can't do that anymore. But I miss that. It's like, I need this one particular thing and don't want to buy a whole box. And now it's just...
Ooh, we have,
now it's 3D printing.
We have to talk about, and he brought up the GW reveals, which I only saw a smidge of because I didn't go over there. But I would like to talk about the 8-bound. Can we talk about that and how those dudes look badass?
Oh, yeah.
8-bound looks so good, and their rules are, they're fast as hell. Don't they move like 9
inches, 4 base attacks? Yeah. And the thing is that they can do the rage boost, which puts them at ballistic skill or weapon skill 2, which is a big deal. Those dudes haul ass.
And then there's like a blood tithe where you can give your entire army +1 to charge for the entire game.
Wait, the thing is they have 4 base attacks, and they basically make 1 additional attack period just for being there. And their strength 6 base, and their weapons AP 3, damage 2.
Yep. And they also can be equipped with chain fists.
Yeah, these guys don't fuck around. The Exalted 8-bound can have the chain fist, and their strength 9, AP 4 damage 2. So they also can be +1 damage with that strat. It is a healthy 2 CP for the Red Butcher strat, but still. And dude, Angron, that's
6 blood tithe points. Bring back Angron.
I looked at his profile, unless I'm missing something. He just seems very killable.
Oh, he's laughably killable. He there's no one that wants to go first more than a World Eaters player with Angron, because he's just hauling ass going, that dude can move 16, he can wreck everything. You're like, he's T7 with a bad save. You're like, he's like, I'm Angron. You're like, and Copperfield disappears. He's gone. You're like,
does he have 18 wounds? I don't remember.
Yeah, he's can't hide him. Bad save, not a great toughness. He will get hey, is that Imperial Guard over there? And he's gone. So,
but then for 6 CP, and he's back, or 6 blood tithe points, he's back.
He looks super cool, and he's gonna high roll some people. You know what I mean? Going first, he's gonna wreck some shit. But most of the time, I actually see some World Leaders armies are probably just not gonna bring him, and just bring a whole lot of more 8-bound and Zerkers and shit like that. Because, man, MSU of those guys, even if you're bringing small squads, those guys hit fucking hard. Like, even a couple guys making it into your lines are not exactly something you want to deal with.
Do you guys like the slim down World Leaders Codex? Do you like, how do you feel about that? Where they kind of cut a lot of the fat out? Is that the way you'd want to go forward for all the armies? Or
I want unique stuff in my armies. That's the biggest thing. Is I despise that we have a main book that we go out of for like both Marines, actually, Chaos and Loyalist Marines. I liked it when you could only have access to certain things in certain chapters. You know what I mean? And certain ones just didn't have things. So your armies are a little bit more unique. It's not like I don't get me wrong. I really, really like making new Marine lists right now. But as I was saying, most of my Marine list, except for Space Wolves, which have unique options. They have combats they can put over the place. They can't combat squads, so you have to build your army a little bit different because you get slots filled up more. And I'd like the rest of my armies look very, very similar. You know what I mean? Like a couple, name characters or a Talon Master type thing. But each time I switch chapters, I'm not switching that much shit. You know what I mean?
Seeing different sub-factions.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that bums me out a little bit because I like seeing very unique shit from each chapter. And the thing is when you read the storylines, they fight wildly different. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's kind of what make Dark Angel's cool because they still have a lot of like the Raven Wing kind of stuff that no one else has access to, or the Deathwing.
Yeah, that's why I like the Blood Angels, is because they have those unique units that get going. I really want to play I wish they would take the regular Dreadnoughts for Space Marines, the Firstborns, and make them squads. They would make me happy because then you can run a Dreadnought army. Have them work like artifacts, where you take one, you take a unit, 3 of them, spread them out, they become individual units. It would just make for, I would actually probably see them on the field more, because right now your elite slots
it's just
are just
jammed
so tied
up.
Yeah.
I love the old Lone Wolf, man. Walking around, fight me. He's out for vengeance. He's like a slayer, basically.
You two are old timers. I have a question for you. Everyone's talking about guard nerfs. Should Marine players be slightly concerned that Blood Angels just won LVO?
No, it's laughably a different rule set. Like, Blood Angels won, but they lost 2 of their secondaries, and they lost armor and contempt. One of the biggest things about Blood Angels was they had 2 secondaries that you could just slam a 15 down fairly reliably with Relentless and Forlorn. So not having that and not having armor and contempt, and they didn't get a lot of buffs. I mean, they can make a shooting army on that. Blood Angels is going to be just fine. They still.
No, I guess I'm wondering, will GW irrationally overreact to that, like kind of like AdMech, sort of?
Possibly. I think you'll see Sanguinary Guard go up probably 5 points a model, but outside of that, I don't think anything else, because with the loss of armor of contempt, the number one, the Sangard aren't anywhere near as good, because they're just, they're still flying Terminators, don't get me wrong, but they don't have an in-ball save, and they're just not anywhere near as solid without the armor of contempt. Still really good units, still going to see a lot of play, just not as good.
And
I think it's going to take until after Cherokee before probably any reactions happen of any kind, and probably not until after Adepticon, in all honesty.
Yeah.
True, there's still Relentless is still there. They just took away a decent amount of stuff. So the way people are playing on that, Blood Angels is always going to be a big deal. +1 to wound is huge. You know what I mean? It's one of the things that I love on Salamanders, for instance, is the +1 to wound strat. Having that across the entire army is gigantic. You know what I mean? Plus, you can make them go Ricky Bobby fast. One go fast. +2 to movement. Like, that's just such a put that in your list.
Yeah, the one thing that you're going to see more that we haven't seen is you're going to see vehicles in a lot of lists where we haven't seen them for, outside of seeing a guard army. I don't think I've seen a Marine army outside of Dark Angels with a vehicle in their list. And now you're going to be seeing speeders, gladiators.
Oh, just shit all over the place, especially you bring in Iron Hands, because their secondary is vehicle based. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's just a big deal on that.
Like in our local meta, I wouldn't be surprised. One of the guys was an Iron Hands player. I'm fully expecting him when Saturday rolls around to have Iron Hands back on the table, and it's going to be like, oh my God, did I bring enough killing stuff? Now, granted, our local meta in our area, there's a lot of Knights players, so there's always been a lot of vehicle killers. But like, if you're not prepared to kill 4 to 6 vehicles every game, you could have a rough go. Yeah.
I think you're going to see a decent amount of Predators went way down, but the Gladiators are probably just better, Anna, on that. So, as far as the Knights on that, I think Knights are going to have the roller coaster of roller coasteriest rides, because there's going to be a ton of high damage, high AP stuff out there. But like, they have the answer to shit too, especially if people try to take bricks of Terminators. Hey, take 30 mortals. Good day, sir. I said good day. Get out of here.
Mm-hmm. That's like, I think I remember which one of the players we were talking with, because there was so many people sitting around at points when we were talking at LVO. And like, one of the guys like, yeah, I want to play, MSU Terminator Army. And I'm like, yeah, that could be very viable. And he was like, I'm thinking of doing it with Dark Angels. And we were like, yeah, yep, you could do it. They've got a lot of capabilities. And with the speed of other slots that they have, it's going to be interesting to see what pops up out of this. I don't think there's going to be a head and shoulders best army. I don't see it right now. I could be wrong. It could be that, guard or, a boogeyman. I don't see it, but they could be.
They have
could
counters.
World Eaters turn into one.
I think World Eaters are going to be spammy. The problem with balancing and playing any army that's only operates in one phase, basically, a Tau, a Votan, a World Eaters, you know what I mean, where they're skewed super hard into one way. The problem is that you're going to have games where it feels like they either get rolled or they roll, and the other somebody's going to have a bad time in some of those games, because it's very hard to balance.
Absolutely.
In the chat, I do like the Predators, all of them, because they went down so much. I would definitely, if I was bringing like a lot of armor, I would bring 3 of the Lancer, which is the cheap Gladiator, and 3 of the Ball Predator. So it's very few points actually into a decent amount of shots, and it's just annoying for your opponent. Like Tornado Speeders right now, holy shit, are they such a good value?
100 points?
70 points.
70 points, yeah.
70 points. You get a multi-melta and an assault cannon, so you get 6 shots with that and 2 shots with the multi-melta. In games I've played and a bunch of TTS tests and stuff like that, they live a lot of the times because, like, are you really going to bother shooting that random piece of armor when you've got all this other shit in your face? You know what I mean? So he just kind of peeks out and shoots and goes, no one, there might not be enough to get back here to me. The same thing, actually, tell you the truth, I've been running las cannon devs, especially in the Space Wolves when you have the Terminator attached to him. So he's just toe-touching cover for a 0 up. And they're 40-some inches away. So you're like, you can shoot back down here. But Ted...
Oh, sorry.
No, it's just Ted the Terminator is going to take that save. So are you thinking you're going to do that?
Isn't that unit like 100 points or something obnoxious?
149 for 4 las cannons, a sergeant with a thunderhammer and a special weapon, and a Terminator with a thunderhammer, storm shield, and a cyclone missile.
I mean, the only saving grace is they don't have a real apothecary. So
that is such. Yeah. I don't understand why that happened. Apparently, their guys are like, "Hey, you're hurt. Well, fucking walk it off."
Have something. Rub these oak leaves on it. You'll be fine.
Yeah. We'd fix you if you guys weren't all so weirdly superstitious. I like the Lancer, Mike. Both the Storm Speeders and the ATVs feel good, but my problem is with both of them is I feel like I could get something I could do a 2-for-1 almost, you know, like the speeders and stuff. I could take a storm or a hammer strike, but I could almost get 2 tornadoes for the same thing. And then you have to split your fire. It's easier to hide because those things are tiny as shit, actually. Regular speeders, the tornado and the regular land speeder. I haven't played with them in a hot minute. I just put them out. I'm like, these things are small as fuck. You know what I mean? You can just beep, go into places. I could go in for the 5th las cannon, but I'm just so used to making them with 4, to be perfectly honest, that I keep forgetting that you can do that in Space Wolves. So, to be fair.
Do you guys think there'll be a big counter meta army at all? Something that kind of comes out of nowhere? Or
GSC.
Yeah, I was just about to say GSC, man. We've been playing practice games with GSC, and if everybody's taking multi-meltas and las cannons, those guys are you just don't even have enough shots. Yeah, and he comes in with
the back or the infiltrators, but you can use the seismic cannons out of the neophyte squads to just clear those guys out of the way.
Good question on both. And he's like, anger about Space with apothecaries. Land speeders or attack bikes, is it all about fly? Kind of. I do like my attack bikes quite a bit, my salamanders, but I can give them full rerolls to hit and to wound. So I like them a lot in there. But like the fly keyword's just so powerful because you can just jam stuff up against walls or against crates and then just bounce over. So you can really do a number on a lot of stuff. And you can just have mobility and just popping out and just sneaking out things is such a big deal. I think guard's going to be super hard to deal with. You bring like 50, 60 guardsmen, 5 to 6 Russes, the mortar teams, 1 or 2 Casterkin. I would say 1 or 2, so you just don't get used to taking 30 when they get nerfed into another dimension.
I'll say one strat I think is over the top for guard. I've had a bunch of guard into guard games of all things. Is the shoot on death strat. I think is absolutely obnoxious on the Russ.
So nuts.
Because it's just like, okay, you killed my Russ, I'm going to go ahead and kill your unit standing on that objective. Enjoy. Or just like I immediately kill whatever killed me just for free. That's just goofy. I don't know why that strat exists.
It's funny because you fight on death and they do so much damage to that big turret that you're like, well, before I go...
One more time.
Speaking of before I go, we have chatted enough. Give me some ending thoughts. Promote some stuff. Tell me what you're doing. Matt, we're starting with you.
I'm just going to keep working on my guard. It feels kind of like the Wild Wild West right now, so I'm going to try and just roll some tournaments and see where things go. Get ready for the summer.
Like your stuff.
I have a few things coming up. I've got RTTM running this weekend. going to an RTT towards the end of the month as well. Also going, instead of Adepticon, because I'm not working Adepticon this year, I am going up to Canada and going to All Is Dust that Jeremy Atkinson from Stat Check is doing, along with one of the other guys up there. And that's going to be just a good fun time. So it's going to be a little different of a trip for me this year.
Like it. Like both of it. Everyone, it is time to call it a day. And on that, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe, Patreon things. I'll have some banners and things hanging very soon, probably next weekish. And we will see. Until then, Queenswave.